South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said that he has no intention of resigning from office in the wake of the Constitutional Court ruling on the Phala Phala scandal. This decision has raised questions about how long he can hold out politically, what it means for the GNU and the DA's position if an impeachment vote does come to Parliament. To unpack the implications, we're joined by Dr. Piet Kroukamp, political analyst from Northwest University in South Africa. Hi, Piet. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, and thanks for having me.
So it seems that Ramaphosa is banking on a legal challenge to get himself out of this sticky situation. So what is your view on this?
Well, you'll remember that in, I think, 2022, somewhere there when the case came in the open, he took the matter to the Constitutional Court, and they decided that they should take it to a higher court. And before that could happen, this Article 89 panel and the review thereof, the Parliament, the National Assembly, voted against the impeachment of the President. And that left the issue moot. In other words, it was never concluded. There was never a decision whether that panel report should be set aside or not, or whether it's actually that the President have something to answer for, because that was what Justice Nkobo decided, that the President has got something to answer, and that there should be impeachment panel be put together in Parliament, and that there should be a hearing. Well, that point was moot when the Parliament voted against it, or the National Assembly voted against it, and now that there was a Constitutional Court challenge in terms of the rules of Parliament, and in terms of that decision by the judges, it is argued that some of the decisions that were being made in Parliament was unconstitutional. One of the principles that was unconstitutional was the one which allowed Parliament to vote before impeachment hearing could be concluded. And in any case, so that's where the matter is now. And there are a lot of people who would argue that the President in some other way is seeking to postpone the matter by taking this particular case, the decision of the panel on the review. But I've heard so many judges and I've heard so many legal minds arguing that there are serious concerns about that panel's report, and that it might be worthy taking it on the review, and we don't know what the High Court will decide. But I think it's within the President's rights to take the matter to the High Court and ask for the review, the panel's review, to be set aside.
So you don't think he should resign?
No, not at all. I still have to see. We could argue that the President might have done something wrong. Say, for instance, the High Court decides that in terms of the PRECA Act, the President should have reported the break-in or the theft at his house, should have reported it to the Hawks, like the PRECA Act suggests it should be done. And he didn't do that. Then it's still, he's done something wrong. But I would say he must resign if he was corrupt. And there's no evidence that he's done anything for the purpose of being corrupt or to commit a corrupt cause for some other reason. So no, I don't think he should resign. Let the legal process makes that decision for him, and I just think it's fair.
How does the ANC view this? Because we've talked before about the divisions in the ANC. Are they supporting them? Do they have no appetite for an early power transition?
Yeah, no, I think for now the ANC will support the President. They will vote against an impeachment. And without their vote, remember, you need a 2/3 majority in the National Assembly to impeach the President, regardless of the decision that was made by this panel, impeachment panel that will be put together, impeachment committee that will be put together now. Regardless of their decision, there will still have to be a vote in the National Assembly, and they will need a 2/3 majority. And I can't imagine them getting that, because it's not only the ANC that will vote against it. I think the Patriotic Alliance will vote against it. Al Jamaa will vote against it. So a number of the smaller parties will also vote against that. So I can't imagine that the President will eventually be removed from office by the National Assembly. And then I think he's jumped through all the hoops. He's took the matter on review. He's committed himself to a panel, a parliamentary or a National Assembly panel, and there was a vote. And then I think we should settle for the fact that the matter has been concluded as far as this specific issue is concerned. Whether we can, maybe new evidence will come to the fore, because you must remember the people that was responsible for the burglary, or allegedly, they are still in court. And who knows what will come out in that court case, and who knows what other evidence might come to the fore later on. But based on what we have now, I think if Parliament has voted, we should, at least that process should consider to be concluded. And then if it's a criminal case, one about corruption later on, that's a different issue.
So what do you think is the position of the Democratic Alliance? Because, opposition parties are relishing this, especially months before a local government elections. What would happen if the DA, who's part of the government of national unity, have to vote on this in Parliament?
Well, I think what they'll do is they look at the facts in front of them and then make a decision. But they are in a bit of a difficult situation. If they, for instance, vote for the removal of the president, then they must also leave the option open that the ANC could decide that Paul Mashatile, their biggest fear, might become at least the interim president. Within 30 days, Chief Justice Maya will have to make a decision on a particular date when there will be a vote in Parliament. And then the parties amongst themselves must nominate candidates for becoming the president of South Africa. One can imagine the ANC will put somebody forward, probably even the EFF. MK party will certainly put somebody forward. The DA might as well. And the ANC's got only 40%, so it will need some of the other parties to vote with it in that decision to appoint a president. And you'll remember the last time when that was the matter, they worked together with the DA, and the DA voted for Ramaphosa to become the president. It is possible that if it's, for instance, Paul Mashatile, that the ANC candidate is Paul Mashatile, it could be that the ANC then decide to go with MK. MK's got around about 14% of the vote, so then they have 50%. In other words, together with MK and the ANC together can appoint a new president of South Africa. So, and that the DA must consider before they vote in favor of the removal of the president. What will they get thereafter? What will South Africa get thereafter? So it is a political decision in as much as it will be a legal decision for them. If the president is found to have contravened the Constitution, if there are evidence of corruption, they have no choice but to vote for his removal. But they will then still have to live with a political decision. And the question is, who will the ANC then vote in together with other parties, whoever they decide to? Who will they decide to be South Africa's next president? And if it's Paul Mashatile, there's general consensus that we could be in for a very, very difficult time. He will be he will work together with the EFF. He will have a working relationship with the MK party. It might have consequences for our economic stability, political stability. It might have consequences for justice. We're about to finish the Madlanga Commission. Those findings might be put on hold. They may never be implemented. There's a whole lot of uncertainties if Ramaphosa is removed. It's not in the interest, as far as politics is concerned, for Ramaphosa to be removed. In terms of the law, that's a different question.
But is he limping now towards the local government elections later this year?
No, I think it's still too far. It depends on how quickly this case can be settled in court. But I don't think that at this stage there's any fears in the ANC about what can happen in November. It's, in any case, it's going to be a really difficult time for the ANC. They already have the expectation that they might dip below 40, even 37, 35%. Because remember, in local government elections, the ANC tend to do a little bit, they get less support than they normally get in a national provincial government election. They know that they're swimming against the tide because of poor service delivery. The whole narrative in South Africa is against the ANC. So they already have the expectation that it's going to be very difficult. I'm not sure that even this case can make their situation worse. But we know that from surveys that was done in the past, that Ramaphosa gives the ANC around about 5% in addition to what they normally would get. In other words, if they're at 40%, if Ramaphosa is there, they might aim for 45%. So if you argue that they're around about 40%, minus the 5% of Ramaphosa, now they're 35%, then it's almost certain that they will lose most of the big metros in South Africa. And that the ANC will be in real big trouble if that happens.
Can we just move from the ANC to the DA and just what's going on in the party? Now, it's got a new leader, Jordan Hill-Lewis. What do you think, the fact that he's not sitting in Parliament, what effect would that have on the party?
No, I think it's a strategic decision. It's a good thing for him to. He's doing really well in Cape Town. It's of utmost importance that they keep Cape Town, that they keep up the standards that they've set for themselves and for the party in Cape Town. And the other thing is, it gives him a degree of freedom. He can criticize the ANC, he can criticize the government from there. He's not beholden to the president. He doesn't have to explain himself. If, for instance, he becomes a member of the government of national unity, he will have to, certain degree, will have to comply with the will and the ills of the president. I think he's well situated there. He might eventually change his mind and become a member of parliament again. But that won't change much. But I can't imagine that as long as there's a government of national unity and the DA is part of that he will become a member of cabinet. There are very able other members of the party that can fill the gaps and fill the holes in that the ANC is left behind in cabinet, in the executive. And the ministers that they have there are doing a really good job. I think John Steenhuisen is a bit under pressure, but Leon Schreiber and Dean McPherson, the rest of them are doing really sterling work in cabinet. There's no reason for him to go there. And I think it's more important for him to be an independent voice, a bird's eye view of the big picture of governance, as opposed to become a member of parliament, a member of the executive. Maybe parliament, but certainly not the executive.
And you live in Johannesburg. There's a very interesting campaign run by Helen Zille for mayor there. I mean, if she's not swimming in bottles, she is directing traffic. So have you come across her?
I've spoken to her a bit. I've spoken to her team. I think she's doing as well as she can in terms of her campaign. It's a high-profile campaign. She focuses on the things that the ANC, where they're really weak. I think there's already a bit of a buzz going on around her. She's her best opportunity. There was a time, I think, that the DA had around about 37% in Johannesburg. That was before the Patriotic Alliance came onto the political scene. It dropped a little bit. They might not get those votes back, but I think there are votes in Soweto and Alexandra and some of the townships. There are votes that is possible to get. Because, quite frankly, democracy and service delivery, they are twin concepts. And more people lose their trust in democracy because of the absent state. And in South Africa, it's not poor service delivery, it's absent service delivery. The state is simply not present. They're not doing what they should be doing. You don't see them anywhere. And I think it's quite possible that if she focuses on getting some of the people that traditionally voted for the ANC, that she might make some gains here. I think I've mentioned this before, that I think the Social Research Foundation has shown that around about 3.7 million black South Africans have said under certain conditions they could vote for the DA. About 500,000 during national elections do vote for the DA. There's 3.2 million out there which can still be captured, and many of them live in Johannesburg. I think the other day she said something that I found weird. She said that she wants to get the DA supporters that do not vote on that day, that don't turn up. She wants to get them to come and actually vote. She wants to mobilize them. So she doesn't really aim for the ANC vote. I think strategically, that's a mistake. You must remember that the DA usually get around about 80% of its support base arrive on voting days. They do pitch up. They quite a committed constituency. You can improve on that, But I honestly also think there's a market that can be captured by the message of good service delivery, and just service delivery in general. Just a present state, just somebody that cares, somebody that turns up for work. I think there's a market. There are two markets for it. The one is to get the DA support, that on that particular day found something else to do to actually go and vote. But there's also a lot of South Africans that will lend their vote to her and say, see if you can make a difference, Gogo.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for speaking to us.
Thanks.